Babla Jonathan. You welcome to this edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinoxe Television, live from our headquarters in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. In our top stories in this edition of the news, the Babaju-Bamenda Road linking the west and the crisis-hit Anglophone northwest region of the Republic of Cameroon becomes a death trap to commuters. The road is in a very deplorable state, and we're going to show you just how it looks in this newscast. And we also talk about the rising COVID-19 figures on the African continent, and South Africa topping the chart. In sub-Saharan Africa, or in Africa, has once more banned alcohol for a second time. Thanks, dear viewers, for staying with us in this edition of the news on Equinoxe Television. We're beginning this newscast on the Babaju-Bamenda stretch of road, the road linking the west region and the crisis-hit Anglophone northwest region of the Republic of Cameroon. The road has been in a bad state for years today, and administrative authorities are attributing the situation of that road to insecurity, indicating that construction works cannot go on because of insecurity, and the road is today in a very deplorable state. It has become a nightmare and a near-death trap to commuters. Smanjikan Gabriel.
A 70-seater vehicle stuck in mud and pulled by a bulldozer. This is Nkombu, a locality after Babaju in the west region on the 35-kilometer stretch of road heading to Bamenda in the northwest region.
We can live to tell stories.
Due to the ongoing reconstruction work on this stretch of road, vehicles are forced to stop at Nkombu for bulldozers to pull them across. The reason for this traffic jam is as a result of a bridge which is under construction. The path opened by the road construction company is very small that passengers will have to spend several hours before crossing the zone. Before the bulldozer drags the 70-seater vehicle, its passengers are forced to step out of the car, then walk inside the slippery muddy surface to the other side of the road to wait for their car. An exercise done by passengers coming and leaving Bamenda. The poor state of the road has created a petty business for bike riders. For the passengers who are not too patient to see their car cross this bad spot on the road, will have to pay an extra 1,500 francs to be taken to Matazem. The construction work of this stretch of roads from Babaju into Bamenda was launched on May 16, 2017 by Public Works Minister Emmanuel Nganunjumesi. Since then, due to the Anglophone crisis, the company in charge has been off and on the road work. The project to construct the Babaju-Bamenda Road is a joint funding of Cameroon's government and the World Bank.
And the security situation remains unstable in the two Anglophone regions of the Republic of Cameroon. Killings, destruction of properties continue within the framework of the 4-year-long deepening Anglophone crisis, and some council workers of Nguti municipality in the southwest region of the Republic of Cameroon were recently abducted, and the mayor is calling on separatist fighters to drop their guns, to come out of the bushes and return to the normal life trend so that peace and normalcy can return in his municipality and across Anglophone Cameroon. Derek Chato reports.
Sanitary and security atmosphere around Nguti Council. The 2019 Administrative and Management Account session is holding in these premises, and the element of the elite unit of the Cameroon Armed Forces are strategically stationed as Chakri Jean-Marie, the senior divisional officer for Coupe Maninguba Division, makes his entrance through the thick vegetation. The separatist fighters, sources say, abducted 2 sanitary council workers who were charged with cleaning up these council premises ahead of today's session. The separatist fighters don't want any meeting here, but Mentong George Eno, mayor of the Nguti Council, sent words to them to instead come and be groomed for leadership and to be able to take over from where he must have ended.
I'm not going to remain as a mayor for life. So still handing over this and if they stay in the bushes, how are they going to learn from other people?
For the council is their own house, and they should support any developmental strive for a better Nguti. Then the council session proper. While congratulating Mentong George Eno and his team to have been able to realize 80% of the 515,982,559 francs CFA for the 2019 financial year amid the Anglophone crisis, the senior divisional officer for Coupe Maninguba Division introduced and called on the Nguti councillors in particular and the sons and daughters of Nguti subdivision in general to implement the be-on-the-spot approach as a step to bring Nguti subdivision back on its feet.
And I want to seize this opportunity once more to call for the mobilization of Nguti Council to come back in the native land. Things are coming gradually back to normalcy. There is no reason that people will continue to be staying outside. And I want to make a special appeal to my young brothers who are still in the bushes. I'm asking them to come out and to see the soft hand straight to them by Excellency President Paul Biya.
The session was twinned with the installation of Mentong George Eno as the mayor of Nguti Council, his 2 deputies, and also the installation of committee members.
You are officially installed as member of this committee
of the Nguti Council.
And with regards to the devastating consequences of the Anglophone crisis on custom revenue in the southwest region of the Republic of Cameroon, custom officials in that administrative unit have been urged to leave no stone unturned in the collection of custom revenue. And we have details with our correspondent in Limbe, Davidson Maimo.
Days in office, the new Southwest Custom Chief of Sector is already matching words with action as instructed by his hierarchy.
In virtue of the power given to me by the Director General of Custom, I declare you all installed in your new function and respective duties.
Installing new Custom Bureau Chiefs for the Southwest region, the Custom Chief of Sector gave firm instruction for them to accelerate revenue collection, which to him is highly needed by the state. Mindful of the present situation within the context of the ongoing Anglophone crisis, the custom boss Nyamsi Daniel say the Southwest Customs sector more than ever before needs solidarity among custom personnel, security and defense forces, and economic operators to succeed in this difficult moment in the region.
Nous connaissons tous que notre vision est particulière.
We know our region is peculiar. We have to rebuild the confidence with economic operators, mobilize all custom resources, and make use of the new fiber optic information system put in place for better results. On his part, the regional chief of bureau, on behalf of all other bureau chiefs installed, promised to bring back the Southwest Custom on its feet once again.
Our mission on the fight against contraband. We are here to promotion of the revenue.
The installation of new bureau chiefs and that of the chief of sector recently, analysts say the Director General of Custom is overhauling the Southwest Customs sector, all in a bid to increase the collection of custom revenue, which has drastically fallen due to the ongoing Anglophone crisis. The event was presided at by the Chief of Bureau for Administration and Judicial Affairs at the Southwest Governor's Office, Ade Emelen. Barely few
inhabitants of Cameroon's economic capital, Douala, are lamenting over forceful eviction plans. Some of them in the Douala 4 municipality took to the streets to protest against plans to forcefully kick them out of the area where they have been living for several years. Immaculate Fogwe reports.
A shrine constructed in a house in order to protect it from being destroyed by any bulldozer. We are in Petit Bonanjo, in the Douala 4 subdivision. After investing several millions of francs CFA to purchase lands and later constructing houses on them, the owners of the lands are being asked to evacuate the site on the pretext that they were duped.
I buy land from Mr. Do. He give me number for land title.
I bought my land from Mr. Ndo, who is still alive. I have been living here for the past 10 years, and all of a sudden, a man called Sopo is claiming ownership of the land. I have my land title. According to the protesters, the supposed landowner has been unable to provide legal proofs of land ownership.
Est-ce qu'il a présenté le titre foncier?
He has not presented any proof to show that he is the owner of the land. He claims that he leased the land to the person who we bought the land from. All we need is proof.
Tu paies un terrain non loti. Il arrive que sur le...
The man who claims to be the owner of the land has asked those who wish not to have their houses destroyed to come negotiate with him. He says anyone who wants to remain on the site should come and negotiate with him and buy a meter square for 20,000 CFA francs. There are some people who have heeded to the negotiation, but none of them have documents to show that they are the rightful owners of the land.
But up to now, you never give no documents for them.
The protesters believe that the situation can only be resolved with the intervention of administrative officials.
Farmers in the Republic of Cameroon continue paying the heavy price of the COVID-19 pandemic. Plum suppliers in the Mongo division are now facing a very difficult situation. They are unable to export the plums, and because of that, demand or supply has risen far above demand, resulting to a significant drop in prices. For me, Armstrong Sander has more.
On the ground without respect to hygienic norms are huge quantities of plums begging for buyers. We are at the Bonken roundabout in the town of Lum, Mungo division of the littoral region of Cameroon, commonly referred to as the Plum Business Center. A 50 kilogram of a bag of plum sold here at 20 to 40,000 francs CFA at this time last year. But today, the same quantity sells between 3,500 to 7,000 francs CFA. Farmers are the biggest losers. There are no buyers for their produce. Imagine a 50 kilogram of plums sold at 3,000 francs CFA. No. All is not right. The country is in disorder. A dark moment for farmers, which has been blamed on the Anglophone crisis and the coronavirus pandemic. Most of our buyers used to come in from France, Gabon, Equatorial Guinea and the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon, through which we sold to Nigeria. The crisis paralyzed issues with closed borders now, and the coming of COVID-19, everything has been spoiled. Initially, we used to have some trucks coming from Gabon, but for more than 1 month now, we've not had buyers from Gabon. The produce I sent to Yaoundé some 3 weeks ago are still there. They have not been sold. They say the northwest and the southwest regions, which formed a large portion of their domestic market, has been paralyzed by the Anglophone crisis, leaving them with a shocking impact. There is disorder in our country. Let the president do something about it. It is over 3 years that we have this problem. Farmers are the biggest losers. The farmers complain that their frustrations have further been compounded, considering the high cost of transporting the produce through the very bad road from their farms to the local market. Porters of the Bonkeng roundabout in the town of Loum also complain that their activities have been badly affected as buyers no longer come. Some of the farmers think the government of Cameroon can buy the plums and transform in order to avoid the current dumping, which is highly felt by local farmers.
The Littoral President of the Social Democratic Front, Honorable Jean-Michel Nincho, is calling for the setting up of a parliamentary inquiry commission to investigate the management of COVID-19 funds in the Republic of Cameroon. While condemning what he qualifies as poor management of the pandemic, he suspects mismanagement and embezzlement of money contributed for that purpose. Innocent fires in details.
Jean-Michel Nincho, SDF Member of Parliament, qualifies the management of COVID-19 in Cameroon by government as witchcraft. In his opinion, the weak response plan, inconsistent decisions, discrimination in support measures, opacity set up as a rule, as well as strong suspicions of embezzlement in the Ministry of Public Health are main evils which obscure the steering of this pandemic in Cameroon. He laments that with huge funds contributed in the National Solidarity Fund, doctors, nursing staff, the public and private, naturopaths, and the traditional healers are still abandoned on their own. The SDF MP preoccupies himself with the fact that the National Solidarity Fund, endowed with 18 billion francs CFA, will most likely be diverted on something else in organized gangs. He says prices in mercurial segments dedicated to COVID-19 give goosebumps compared to prices approved by the Ministry of Public Health in pharmacies. Jean-Michel Nincho dwells on the administrative order form number 0126 signed on April 9th, 2020 and delivered to Red Medical Company by the Secretary of State for Epidemics and Pandemics in the Ministry of Public Health. He clarifies that this order relates to delivery of 1,000 latex gloves, box of 100 for the sum of 10 million francs against 3.5 million if delivery was made by a pharmacy, 1,000 infrared thermometers for 150 million against 25 million in pharmacies, 100,000 surgical masks for 100 million francs against 40 million francs in pharmacies, 700 protective suits at 56 million francs against 10.5 million in pharmacies, 700 protective glasses at 10,150,000 francs against 250,000 francs in pharmacies, 10,000 protective masks FFP2 at 25 million francs against 21 million francs in pharmacies, a sum including tax of 330,836,750 francs paid by the state against 94,830,750 francs if these materials had been purchased in pharmacies. This, he says, makes
is a difference just for this other form of 236,006,000 francs between price of the price list and prices in pharmacies. The curious SDF-MP notifies that by multiplying the amount including all tax involved in this purchase order by 100, this will give an amount including tax of 33,083,675,000 francs. If stick to the mercurial practiced at state level against 9,483,075,000 francs approved pharmacy price, that is to say a differential of 23,700,600,000 francs. Jean-Michel Nincho settles to the opinion on a large scale it is robbery in good standing and well programmed against the state's treasury. He advises that mafia gangsters hidden in the shadows must not take advantage of this pandemic to fatten themselves at the detriment of the suffering people. Moreover, the MP says with absence of a parliamentary commission of inquiry, the management of all COVID-19 fund should at least be subject of an investigation by the competent services of the Republic. This including the 135 billion franc CFA fund released by the International Monetary Fund under the Rapid Credit Facility for the COVID-19.
As a report in there, the COVID-19 figures have continued rising in Cameroon and other parts of the African continent. The World Health Organization had earlier warned that the coronavirus was spreading at an accelerated speed, and today at least 15,000 persons are now known to have tested positive for coronavirus in Cameroon. And in South Africa, the country bans alcohol again to combat COVID-19. It is one of the several restrictions introduced by President Cyril Ramaphosa amid rising coronavirus figure rates, so rising coronavirus infection rates. And the president said that the alcohol ban will put pressure or take off pressure from the national healthcare system. It is the second time South Africa is banning alcohol. At a nighttime curfew has been imposed, and the wearing of masks outdoors is now compulsory. Total infections in South Africa has exceeded 250,000, that is 250,000. Deaths resulting from the coronavirus have also risen to more than 4,000, and government projections estimate that this could rise to 50,000 by the end of the year. South Africa remains the hardest hit country in Africa. Earlier this week, it recorded its highest single-day increase in coronavirus. Nearly half of them were in the Gauteng province. That is a province that is becoming the outbreak's epicenter. And in a public address, President Cyril Ramaphosa acknowledged most people had taken action to help prevent the spread, but he said there are still some who act without any responsibility to respect and protect each other. And to know why the coronavirus figures are increasing rapidly in South Africa, we talked to a Cameroonian medical expert who is based in Pretoria, Professor Henry Famendam, is a pharmaceutical and public health expert. Take a listen.
The thing is, South Africa has about over 250-something thousand cases. And like you said, in the Southern African region, in the SADC region, the lead. Cameroon in the CEMAC region is getting close to 15,000 cases. In the case of South Africa, the first thing is that South Africa has good surveillance systems, which means the reporting it's very, very good. It's not perfect, but it's definitely much better than you see with other countries. And in the CEMAC region, I'm almost sure that Cameroon has better surveillance than you find in all the other CEMAC countries. And so the reporting is probably better than you find in other CEMAC countries. So generally speaking, most of the African countries are definitely underreporting. And I would think even the reporting for Cameroon needs to improve. And I've said before that this is a situation where if the number of cases go up, we should actually be celebrating, because it's telling us that we're tracing better, because it is showing from what we see in Europe, in the US, that in Africa, we probably are not reporting as much. This is this problem that we saw when HIV started, that African surveillance systems were not picking up the cases until 5-10 years down the road, we became the highest continent with HIV. I think we should use this opportunity in Africa to strengthen surveillance.
And there is a growing fear in Africa with regards to the possible COVID-19 vaccine trials and the use of the vaccine, notably in sub-Saharan Africa. And we asked Professor Famunda Henry, why the fear? This is what he said.
It's very historic that black people have had a short end when it came to clinical trials. But these are things that happened many years ago. The clear-cut one, which everybody makes reference to it, is the fact that in the early 1930s, there was a trial in Tuskegee in Alabama in the US, whereby black people were enrolled onto a syphilis trial. There were about 413 black people that were enrolled in that study that was supposed to last for 6 months, for six weeks to 6 months. It actually took about 40 years. What they did in that study was to get patients that had syphilis, they are black patients, and did not put them on any treatment, and didn't tell them the truth about what they were getting, didn't tell them the truth about what they were doing. And so a lot of those patients ended up dying or transmitted the syphilis to their spouses or to their vertical transmission, which means those that got pregnant were transmitted it to their newborn children. And so this has kept a very bitter taste for black people globally. And of course, what we can also cite is the fact that in Germany, during the Nazi period in Nuremberg, there were a lot of prisoners that were used for all kinds of studies that you could tell. And in nowadays, that's very, very illegal. And we now have ways that clinical studies are being conducted. And so people are very concerned that are they going to repeat the same thing?
And several experts, civil society, political leaders have made statements saying Africans don't receive any vaccine from Europe, don't receive any vaccine from America, no vaccine trials in Africa. And Professor Famunda, talking about this, says if some conditions are respected, if some rules are respected, if some institutions are put in place, it would not be a problem to carry out vaccine trials in Africa. Take a listen.
The way clinical trials are conducted nowadays requires that, if we take Cameroon as an example, Cameroon needs to have a scientific committee that looks at all the protocols that come into the country to look at what is the science on this protocol to test these medications on Cameroonians. That's a scientific committee that should be a standing committee at the Ministry of Health, at the Medicine Regulatory Authority. Then you have what we call the Ethics Committee. The Ethics Committee looks at how are the patients selected, how are the patients protected. So the Ethics Committee is meant to make sure that there is no harm that is going to be done to the patients. It's meant to ensure that you are not coercing the patient, which means you don't pay them to come and participate just because you want to test medicine on them. That's what we call the Ethics Committee, and a number of things that they will have to do. Then you have a situation where the Scientific Committee and the Regulatory Authority has to make sure that any clinical trial or vaccine trial must have monitoring, must have a team that does regular monitoring to make sure that the patients are well protected. And then finally, there must be a team that looks at, are there any adverse reactions? Are there any side effects? So if each and every African country has this, then we shouldn't worry too much about what the vaccine is going to do. Bring it to Cameroon, to South Africa, to Nigeria. I know South Africa has it. So if you want to partner with South Africa, you have to go through those steps. And so it's the onus is on every African country to be structured in that manner. Now, there's a lot of gain for us to be able to participate in studies. Reason being that drug molecules act differently in different people. There are some medications that work differently in Caucasian population and the white population than it would work in the black population. So we should not wait to be tested only on Europeans and Americans and then we extrapolate, because it usually doesn't work in that manner.
Professor Henry Fomundan, Cameroonian pharmaceutical care and public health expert based in Pretoria, South Africa, was speaking to The Insight yesterday. Talking Point is up next. In today's edition of Talking Points, we are receiving a civil society leader, Ernestine Yenchi. You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Babila Jonathan.
It's been a while we've not received a female guest on the news. You're welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
All right, we begin on the road, the Babaju-Bamenda Road. You saw the state of that road in this newscast.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Okay, regarding the Babaju-Bamenda Road, that has been a call for concern all this while, with most Anglophones really like pouring out grudges, because we were hoping that before the rainy season starts, maybe the contractors, I think it's Razel, not Satom, they were supposed to have finished with this particular work. But looking at things right now, what we expect is for the government to at least use a plan B. When I talk about plan B, I mean like, since they're talking about the road having...
The plan A is not working because the authorities are saying that there is insecurity. The company, as Smanjik and Gabriel indicated in that report, is not constantly working on that road because of insecurity.
Yeah, we are aware of the insecurity that is in that particular area. But when I was talking about plan B, this means we can use our own people to do our own work. You know, in the military, we have what is called a génie civil.
The civil engineering.
Civil engineering corps of the military, which means that these are military, they are trained, and that's their job to do road construction and also to do maintenance. Which if, let's say, Razel or Satom, these are just normal people, they are contractors. If they're not able to work in that environment, we expect the government to use the civil engineering corps of the military to do that work. Because firstly, we believe they are protected. They are military, they can protect themselves, and if they really want to do it, they can use the shortest possible time to carry on this particular work. If you look at it on the other hand, we wish to plead that the government also should fasten the decentralization process, because if you look at things delaying the country, is because no accurate measure is taken. If this work was given out, let's say, to a particular community, the Northwest or the Western region, we could see that it would be very easy for them to manage it. So if this process is fastened up, then we can see that most of this stuff like the roads, maybe other government facilities.
If the regions were granted adequate autonomy to manage their own affairs, this will facilitate the implementation or the execution of such projects. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
And but the insecurity is there, and the insecurity, if not well managed, or if it is difficult to manage for the central administration, the local administrative authorities, will they be able to push through this with regards to the situation on the ground?
If you look at what is happening in the Northwest and Southwest, I think there are certain projects that are being carried on by the people who stay there, and they're not being disturbed by the separatist fighters. Which means if they know it's their own project, I don't see them coming out to disturb. I don't see them coming out to attack anybody. Because if they know it's our own project, it's our own people that are doing it for our own good, I don't see them coming out and disturbing anybody.
Even though the road linking Manfe and Eshobi in the southwest region of the country has not been constructed because of insecurity, and there's even a heavy duty machine, a bulldozer on that road that was set ablaze, and the insecurity is reigning. And but there are issues, there are questions concerning this particular stretch of road linking Babaju and Bamenda, because this part of the road, this section from Babaju right up to Matazam in Santa, is not in the northwest region of the country. Why is it difficult to carry on the works there? Are separatists crossing over to hinder the company from constructing there? Those are some of the questions that people are asking.
Those are the questions that people are really asking, which I don't think the separatist fighters are going to the other region to disturb, especially in the west. So that's what I was saying is, if there was adequate decentralization of power, you see that those from the western region, they could take their own contract, then they do their own part of the road, while those from the northwest, they do their own part of the road, and then we just link it up.
From Babaju to Matazam, and then northwest continues from Matazam down to the town of Bamenda.
Yeah.
Now, this is a little paradoxical. Government is saying we cannot go on with this construction work as planned because of insecurity. The contractors, the company constructing the road is not very constant on the road because of insecurity issues. At the same time, government is saying, okay, we're going to reconstruct destroyed villages in the interior parts of the northwest and southwest regions, not only in the urban centers but also in the interior parts. When we look at the road between Babaju and Bamenda and the impossibility for the work to go on smoothly, is it going to be possible inside there in the regions?
That's very impossible. For anything to take place right now in those two regions, what we want is let them first be peace. If we have peace, we know reconstructing is never a problem. But for the government to say that they want to go and start doing, we follow it up on TV all this while, and many people are asking questions, how? Because if you cannot construct, as you say, between Babaju, Bamenda, how will you go right down to, let's say, in Kumbu and do reconstruction? Because what happens now is, the level of insecurity in these two regions is so alarming to a point that nobody wants to get themselves in front of these boys. Truly, if you hire anybody to go out there and work, nobody wants to get themselves involved with these particular boys. Because if you're working there, let's say, fine, you've been sent by the government to go and do your job. It's your job you're doing. You're not certain what these guys are planning. They're like, maybe you just came, you're in our own, they call it their own, they call it county, constituency and all whatnot. They'll feel like maybe you're a traitor and they want to get back at you. You have seen the number of people that have been killed for no good reason.
Council workers of Nguti kidnapped. Council workers who were assigned to clean up the council hall ahead of the last council session kidnapped and so on. But the coordinator of the reconstruction plan, Minister Paul Tasson, says that reconstruction has to take place. Reconstruction must take place. Gun stocking, bullets flying over heads of people and so on, from one house to the other, from one place to the other. Reconstruction must take place, because to him, the reconstruction will fast track the return to peace and normalcy.
Talking about that, we follow what the Prime Minister have said so far, what Mr. Paul Tasson have said so far. Good. It's easy to say than to do it. Because seeing the conditions back there, how do you go and start reconstructing? That's the question we are asking. Fine, they believe we're going to reconstruct maybe the areas that are a little bit calm, and then the other areas can watch and then allow them to come do their job. But if you look at it very well, it's not going to work. So what the government needs to do is just dialogue with these guys. They have to sit down, call for ceasefire, and dialogue with the separatist fighters. In that case, it will permit them now to maybe get away a heads up, like, They can sit down and plan on how to do the reconstruction. But if you ask me, I'll tell you that it's a lie that they can just walk in there and start doing reconstruction. Look at what happened during their visit. They went down there, nobody came out to welcome them. The whole place was locked down because firstly, people are living in fear. People are living in fear. Nobody wants to take the risks. And if you're going out there, like maybe you want to prove or maybe try to help out the situation, you don't know who is who. We have a lot of blacklists. We have a lot of people that are selling out others. You might have a goodwill, like you want things to work out, but on the other hand, it's not what the next person thinks.
Government thinks that it is progressing with this plan within the context of a gradual return to normalcy. You heard the divisional officer of Nguti in the report filed in by Derek Jato in Boya, saying that there is a gradual return to normalcy. And so while we are returning to normalcy, we are constructing. That's what the government is saying. That's the idea that the government is putting through. Is it not possible to be reconstructing while we are gradually returning to normalcy? I would even ask you, first of all, are we really returning to normalcy? Do you think so?
No, we are not. Because if we're returning to normalcy, we want to see ceasefire. We want to see people stop being killed. Because last week, over the news, you see people being beheaded. People are just remove people from the car, they shoot them and throw them in the streets. So for me, things are not returning to normal.
All right, what should be done in some few words? What should be done now for things to return to normalcy in those two regions?
As is the cry of everybody out there, we want peace. It's the cry of everybody, both in the country, both out of the country. We just want peace to retain. Because this particular war, nobody is seeing where it's heading us to, apart of destroying lives, destroying properties, and just destroying every economic plan we've ever had in the country. You look at the people who are selling plums, they have been crying. They're talking about this particular crisis. They're not in the northwest and in the southwest, but yet they feel the impact of this particular war. So what we pray for is that, firstly, the government should call for a ceasefire and dialogue with the separatist leaders. From then now, maybe everybody will have peace of mind and everybody will sit and participate in reconstruction or bring about things to normal.
All right, government should call for a ceasefire and discuss with the separatist leaders. There is already something happening in that light of discussion between government and separatist leaders. Yenchi Ernestine, civil society leader, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Babila Jonathan.
Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us. That's it for today.